After working with over 500 e-commerce brands in the last 5 years and running Google ads for them, I've seen my fair share of good and bad Google Shopping ads. And in this video, I want to break down a few examples of both good and bad Google Shopping ads, along with exactly what makes a good Google Shopping ad good versus what makes a bad Google Shopping ad bad, so you can replicate these kinds of good strategies and tips for your own e-commerce brand as well. But with that, let's go over an example of a good Google Shopping ad in a very competitive niche. Now, to find this, I simply searched up the keyword blackout window drapes for bedroom, and there's a lot of different varieties that come up, a lot of different examples, etc. However, there's really only one which kind of captures your attention despite not ranking number 1 or number 2, and that is the number 3 brand right here, the number 3 product by Wayfair. Now, if you take a closer look, first looking at the competitors rather than this brand itself, we can understand that majority of these competitors, they have a plain and simple approach that is very similar to each other. It's just the window drapes right in the middle of the screen, where it's either a colorful background or a plain white background, and that's pretty much it. There's no kind of room for scale in this niche because everybody is essentially doing the same thing. However, even then, Wayfair comes with this specific product and this specific approach where, yes, although it's on a real lifestyle background, the window drapes are not covering all the way down. They're not going all the way down like most of these, and that is enough for us to basically give our impression share to this brand simply because it's standing out via the product image itself. And then they also have reviews here, more reviews than basically a lot of these other brands. It matches with brands.com, but essentially their approach with the product image is what captures the attention. And then to top it out, they have a very competitive pricing. Their product title, there's a ... meaning it's very big, lengthy with proper SEO keywords, and very high perceived value. And they made it a point to optimize their product feed as well in the back end with the right kinds of keywords. All these things combined is what sets this brand apart from the other brands which are also ranking here. But this brings us now to a bad example of a brand which is ranking, and that is Living Spaces right here. Now, again, looking at competitors, we can see a lot of these product images, they're very, very similar to each other. Some are on a real lifestyle background, others are on a plain white background. And in situations like this, it becomes a bit difficult to really compete because you can go either way, and if you don't have the right approach, if you don't have a way to stand out, then you're just going to basically blend in, which is exactly what happens with Living Spaces. Although their approach is a little bit different than everybody else's because they have turned their seats right here, their chair, to one direction, whereas the others, they're either facing the camera or they're facing the other way. But even then, Living Spaces, this product itself, because of the bland nature of the product image, it's simply blending in. You're not going to look twice at this product before you kind of glaze over and look at something else. So this kind of makes it a bad product image and just bad approach in general because the image, it's not captivating enough. Remember, your image is like your hook when it comes to Facebook ads or TikTok ads. The hook is what captures somebody, your audience, to watch all the way through. Same thing here. If your product image is not ideal, it's not standing out, and it's not capturing anybody's attention, well, they're not gonna really interact with it, they're not gonna click on it, and so on and so forth. So to really change things around, you have to ensure you have a right product image which stands out. But this now brings us to a good example of a brand which is doing this absolutely correctly, and that brand is actually AllModern right here, all the way third to last essentially. Now, if we take a closer look at all of these other products coming up, again, very, very similar to each other, very little differences between all of these. However, if you take a closer look at AllModern, you'll start to understand that AllModern actually does not even have a square image. It's more of a vertical image. And this is where AllModern truly stands out because there's literally no other way to stand out besides putting a carpet on a plain white background like maybe this brand did right here. But then it kind of reduces the impact of the product. It doesn't really help you understand the product and how it looks in general. But AllModern came in with a completely different approach. Instead of making the product images squares, they made it vertical, and this is enough to stand out even in the most competitive niches out there. It's not always about just having a plain white background or just having a lifestyle image. It's about just even changing the size of the image itself. It's about adding things in the background to make it look a bit unique, to make it stand out a bit more. These are things which not only work with Google Ads, but also what I've seen worked time and time again for a lot of the brands to handle under my agency, Your Marketing, which, by the way, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling to the next level, go out to my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen. But really, the product image and just how it's vertical is what makes this brand stand out. But moving on now to the same example, but a bad image and just a bad approach in general, it would have to be this brand right here, Joss and Main. It's not even ranking in the top 5 or top 10 right here. It's ranking all the way in the back. However, this is a bad ad simply because it's not showcasing the product fully. It's only showcasing a very, very small portion of the product. So you have no idea how big it is, how it's gonna look in a certain living space, how it basically the texture is, etc. There's so many missing answers to questions here that this makes users not even want to interact with the brand anymore. So keep in mind, it's always about answering as many of your audience's questions as possible. One of the easiest ways to do that is by simply having a product image which stands out and which makes it easy for your audience to understand what the product is. Moving on now to our final example of a good brand, essentially, and that good example is on the second page. This time it's this one right here, Lovesac. Now, if we look at a majority of these other brands coming up, other products coming up, you can see majority of these just have the product in display that's on a real lifestyle background, or it's on a plain white background just pointed towards the camera. However, Lovesac comes in and they know that because it's such a similar approach to each other, they need to do something different. The way they do it is by tilting their product, basically pointing towards the camera to left to right. It's enough to really capture your attention and just make you want to look into it, make you want to further investigate into it. Whether you purchase or not, that's a completely different story. But the main goal with Google Shopping and just getting attention is basically trying to get that impression share. That impression share is what eventually drives a lot of the scale and what eventually gets brands scaling to the very next level. And Lovesac did this perfectly. But in addition, they have made their price the color green, whereas majority of the competitors, they have a color of the price which is black, which means they added a promo in the back end which made the price the color green. And these small things really make a big impact and makes the brand truly stand out from everything else that's ranking here. But finally, moving on to the bad example of another brand, and it is this one right here, ranking number 3. Now, this brand, although it's ranking number 3, it's most likely ranking here because of a high bid or because they're spending a lot of money. It's definitely not because of their ad approach here. And that's because, as I mentioned earlier, if you're not showing your product fully, it's going to lead to a lot of unanswered questions, and that's never ideal because it makes users want to not even find out more about your product because they don't even know what the product looks like in total, how it's going to make their life better, etc. So it's all about answering the questions. Otherwise, none of these other things matter, like reviews, like having a good product title, etc. At the end of the day, it comes down to your product image and what you do in the Google Merchant Center, along with titles and prizes, which helps your brand stand out from the competitors. But if you run a brand, again, doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads. Go on to my website, yourmarketing.com, schedule a free call with me, and let's see if we can potentially work together and make that happen. But check out this video right here of a case study of a brand which was scaled to multi-7 figures following these Google Shopping ad tricks and tips.